We will start with our roll call. Mrs. Nye. Here.
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 Thank you. I'm going to wait just a few minutes until people get settled. Thank you. Would everyone please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance, and please remain standing for a moment of silence. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please be seated. We will start off with some routine business. The first is to approve the minutes of the June 28th, 2022 regular board meeting. Could I please get a motion?
Madam President, I make a motion to approve the minutes of the June 8th, 2022 regular board meeting as presented.
Second.
All those in favor of approving the minutes of the June 8th, 2022 regular board meeting, please say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Next, we have to approve and ratify payroll and the accounts payable vouchers. Could I please get a motion?
Madam President, I make a motion to approve and ratify payroll and accounts payable vouchers.
Second.
All those in favor of approving and ratifying payroll and accounts payable vouchers, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Joel?
Aye.
Thank you. Motion carries. Mr. Narducci, do we have any correspondence tonight?
Madam President, members of the board, there is no correspondence at this time. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we do have an action item, and I have a feeling that there's a number of people here that are waiting to hear our resolution for our action item. So I will turn this over to Mr. Narducci.
Madam President, members of the board, and invited guests or guests of the board today, it gives me great honor to provide this proclamation. Diana Messersmith has been an employee of the Chandler Unified School District for more than 30 years, serving as supervisor of the district warehouse since its inception in 1989. She started the warehouse with a staff of 1. At that time, Chandler District had 12 schools to service, eventually growing to a capacity of where she and her staff were responsible for providing supplies and services to 45 schools and numerous support sites. Also under her supervision, the warehouse staff facilitates the processing and delivery of approximately 5,000 orders annually. Nearly 70% of all purchase orders are processed and delivered through the district warehouse. Diana was also responsible for overseeing the mailing department and has implemented a process that resulted in annual fiscal savings. Over the years, Diana Messersmith met the challenges of a rapid growth district, from assisting with training office managers, helping manage tax credit donations, managing the mailing and shipping department, overseeing the property control and records department, and most recently, assisting with the distribution of COVID-related items. This included the distribution of computers, tens of thousands of masks, hand sanitizers, and cleaning-related supplies so that teachers, staff, and students could maintain health and safety working spaces. Diana was also responsible for generating hundreds of thousands of dollars in revenue for the district through the sale of district surplus items. In 2021 alone, that revenue totaled over $220,000. In addition to revenue from district surplus, she was instrumental in generating tens of thousands of dollars of sales to outside school districts. Other school district officials often tour the warehouse, gleaning from Diana's knowledge to use as the standard in implementation of their own facility. Diana worked tirelessly to maintain a reputation of efficiency and has has been a constant fixture in the behind-the-scenes workings of CUSD. Her tenacity and dedication, along with the longevity of her staff, a combined total of 96 years, are excellent examples that assist and as an asset she has been to CUSD. Therefore, in appreciation of Diana's contributions to CUSD, it is requested the governing board name the district warehouse in honor of Diana Mastersmith, as presented by Superintendent Franklin R. Narducci on June 22nd, 2022.
Thank you, Mr. Narducci. Could I get a motion, please?
Madam President, I make a motion to approve the naming of the Chandler Unified School District Warehouse in honor of Diana Messersmith.
Second.
Is there any discussion? Joel,
I
did
have-
you want to say something?
Now's the time to make comments?
Well, if you'd like
Or
to.
after.
If you'd like to.
So, most of you in this room don't know that, in essence, I hired Diana how many years ago? 33 years ago. So at the time, we didn't have a warehouse, and the purchasing agent, Bill Stroud, said, we need to hire this lady from Kyrene. Well, don't beat me up too bad. So I said, a lady? Yep. So I said, okay, I'll trust that. And then I went to Dr. Perry, the superintendent. And I said, Ted, we want to hire a lady to run the warehouse. A lady? Yep. And he goes, okay. And I rest my case. She's 33 years with us and has done a wonderful job. And I've had a lot of trouble saying Diana, so I apologize for always saying Diane. So you did wonderful.
Are there any other comments? All right. All those in favor of naming the CUSD warehouse in honor of Diana Messersmith, please say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Motion carries. Congratulations. Diana, do you want to go to the microphone for a moment?
I'm not used to speaking with one of these. My mouth is usually loud. I want to thank you guys so much. It's been an honor to work for Chandler Schools. It's been a family for me for a long time. Since this has come about, I've actually thought about my first days at Chandler. And I remember walking into the warehouse the first time, and I was actually in the property control office that is now, and all there was a table that was at a slant, a kindergarten chair, and a beige rotary dial telephone with no phone list. And then the first computer I got was a Tandy computer from Radio Shack. But I want everyone to know that the warehouse couldn't be what it is today if it wasn't for the staff that I had and the support I had from that staff and everything that they did for me. So I just want to thank my staff the most of all, because they're the ones that were there, and they're the ones that making CUSD great. So thank you again very much.
Is there family that you wanted to recognize also with you here tonight?
I'm sorry.
Is there family here that
I
you,
have my mom, Donna Holt, here. I have my aunt, Jeannie Potts, and I have two cousins, Ricky and Rodney, and their wives, Stacy and Wendy, and their children.
wonderful.
Thank you very much. I have some of my staff here, Marcy and Sisto, and I can't forget Robbie Ann, because she's helped me through the years too.
Thank you. Mr. Narducci?
Madam
did you have-
President, just a note, I mean, off of the resolution. You've done some amazing things for so many people, Diana, and this is just a little bit of our giving back to everything that you've done and set up, and even set up for the future with our new coordinator for the warehouse as well. But just your staff being here, remember, this was a nomination from your staff too, and they've appreciated it as well. And I think that's the most sincerest, authentic form of award you can get, is when the people you've worked with for so long, 96 years of experience, Sister, you probably are about 40 of those years, but with 96 years of experience, and they come in and they say, hey, this person's done some things, and we just can't let her just go without having some type. And also, having that many years in one place, I just don't know with the new workforce we're having, if anybody's going to be anywhere for 38 years anymore, right? There's just such a different value and of stick-to-itness and loyalty with organizations. That's a long time to be loyal to an organization and a community, because what you made best for us was best for our kids, it was best for our teachers, it was best for our administrators. It just touched past the warehouse. Also, that you weren't afraid to tackle anything, but you also were the help. I remember 25 years coming as a principal here, brand new, and you made some things happen that I didn't think could happen as things were being stored there and coming out. And I said, do I really have to take this old microphone on a record player, because I don't think we use those anymore? And you were willing to take that back and see if I can get $300 credit for it. So we remember all those things that you did extra that you didn't have to do in your job, and they're so appreciated. So thank you for kickstarting us into the future, and thank you for being forward-thinking when people may have been just absorbed by the growth of this district. It was happening so quickly, building 2 to 3 schools a year. You were part of helping us move forward, and as was the past administration. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
I guess we'll now move on to our next agenda item, and that is our citizens' comments. And tonight, Ken James, one of our executive directors, will summarize the comment presented online. And then we will move into the in-person comments, and we have 3 of them, and those will be, speakers can speak for 3 minutes. Mr. James.
Thank you, Madam President. Members of the board and Superintendent Narducci, as a courtesy, we provide an opportunity for the public to submit citizens' comments electronically on any topic. This week, one person submitted a comment relating to governing board meetings. Submitting comments electronically provides our governing board members time to read and prepare prior to the meeting. This format also provides the board an opportunity to ask clarifying questions to the administration. You have the submissions verbatim for your consideration. They are also available on the website for public review. Now, during our public comments, members of the governing board may not discuss items that are not specifically identified on the agenda. Therefore, pursuant to the state statute, action taken as a result of public comments is limited to directing staff to review the matter, responding to criticism, or scheduling the matter for further consideration and decision at a later date. The board president reserves the right to ensure that speakers present on topics that are within the board's jurisdiction. Everyone is asked to present their comments in a respectful and courteous manner. Profanity or threats of harm will not be tolerated. Our first speaker, Kurt Roars.
Thank you. My name is Kurt Roars. I'm a parent in this district. I'm here to speak to you tonight about fatherhood and its apparent lack of inclusion in the social emotional learning curriculum. In the few pieces of social emotional learning materials, also known as SEL, that we have seen, there appears to be a glaring omission addressing this very important issue. There does not seem to be little, if any, reference to the rights, roles, and responsibilities of fathers in the lives of your students, who are our children, who will eventually become parents themselves. As a consequence, these students, and in particular the young men who will soon be adults, have a little concept of the responsibilities of fathers in the home, thus normalizing and perpetuating a cycle of fatherlessness and its devastating social consequences. For example, recent studies show that children grow up in fatherless homes make up 90% of the prison population, are more likely to live in poverty, are more likely to abuse drugs and alcohol, more likely to have behavioral problems, are more likely to drop out of school, are more likely to run away from home, and sadly, more likely to commit suicide. In addition, the daughters who grow up in fatherless homes are more likely to become pregnant in their teens, are more likely to have babies out of wedlock, and are more likely to get divorced if they do get married. There also seems to be a gross misconception that single mothers can handle raising children by themselves without any male help. This approach has failed tragically and now triggering school systems to step into the breach to raise children according to their standards. If this is the case, how come this fundamental problem is largely ignored in SEL curriculum? Why is there no discussion on this very important issue? I see several fathers on the dais before me. I've even met some of your children. I know you understand the concept of fatherhood through your own experience. How can you allow this oversight? In media portrayals, fathers are routinely demeaned as fools or simply dismissed as irrelevant. There are no longer seen any positive role models presented. Drag queens get more public recognition and respect than a dedicated father. Are these the role models that we intend to present to our children? I urge you to review your SEL materials to make sure that the missing concept of fatherhood is at the center of discussions around student social development in order to put a greater focus on one of the primary causes of mental and emotional health issues of your students. Drag queen story hours are not the answer. Thank you.
Next speaker, Ann Adams.
Madam President, member of the board, and Superintendent Narducci, Mr. Narducci, as a Chandler parent, I would like to thank you all for getting some of the suicide resources out. I did see that come through and paid more attention to it. I know they're there. We just need to keep pushing and create more awareness. I'd like to also say another special thanks to SROs, our school resource officers, and our Chandler crisis officers. I feel like their role in our schools is imperative, especially during today's environment. There's increased violence, open borders, drugs, marijuana. Marijuana is 5 times more potent in an adolescence, causes major psychosis, which leads to school shootings. I mean, there's so many problems that we have, and I just really am thankful. When I went to a couple of the funerals, I saw the Chandler crisis officers, who are the first at the scenes at these funerals, supporting our families, supporting our community. Actually, I saw more of them present than any of you, and I really appreciate that, and I want to continue with their presence. I don't want to see any reduction whatsoever in police officers in our school as a parent. A motherless board member mentioned this, and it offended me greatly. Now, more than ever, I want my community protected, and I want my children protected at the school. And I trust that you are all doing the right thing, and I appreciate that you will continue to do the right thing, because it's imperative that our kids feel safe in our schools. And what you're doing so far, I really appreciate. I hope none of it is removed. And if anything, during these times, perhaps some of it is added. Joel Worth, you mentioned today's environment. And I appreciate you mentioning that. I do agree with it. I don't feel as safe. I feel like there's a reduction in police officers in our community, and I definitely don't want to see that happen in our schools. So please continue to keep my kids safe, keep my kids' friends safe, and I appreciate what you're doing in that regards. Thank you.
Next speaker, Dawn Shim.
Good evening. My name is Dawn Shim. I'm a high schooler from Hamilton High School, and I am a representative of Support Equality Arizona Schools, which is a student advocacy group dedicated to promoting LGBTQ and minority student stories. We are also very proud to be working with Drag Queen Story Hour, which promotes diversity to our young students. 2 months ago, I came here and I told you about a student who was facing violence and problems within our schools as they identified as an LGBTQ individual. I let you know that the administration was not kind to them and they faced a lot of issues. None of these problems really have been addressed by the board. Our GLSEN statistics show that 68% of LGBTQ individuals have been harassed because of their gender identity, specifically within Arizona recently. These are students that we're talking about. Additionally, 92% of our students who identify as LGBTQ heard slurs and negative language towards how they identify. This actually reflects upon a personal experience that I had. At my school, a few students, as well as I, organized a day of silence, which honors LGBTQ students who have been historically silenced by systems that are put in place. Unfortunately, a lot of students were called slurs in the hallways. That should not be happening within our schools. This is a problem that needs to be addressed. As you know, this month is Pride Month. I haven't heard anything from this board this month at all about what we're doing to address the crises that are faced by LGBTQ students today. This is obviously something that can be fixed. Let's look to Mesa as an example. Mesa enacted policies for transgender students which allow them to have better gender-affirming identification within their school systems. Additionally, Tempe released an affirming LGBTQ student resolution which helped their students to play in athletics and identify in a way that is affirming to them. Chandler is one of the biggest school systems in Arizona. Why is this not a policy that we can enact for our students? On the district website, it tells you that Chandler is dedicated to excellence. I think that this excellence should start applying not only to our academic standards, but also for the mental and emotional health of our LGBTQ students.
30 seconds.
I really urge you right now, as well as throughout the rest of this year, to commit to LGBTQ and minority students within this district. Just the last board meeting, we heard from students who have a history of mental illness, as well as we have seen the impacts of mental crises among our students. And this is an issue that is widely faced more by LGBTQ students. And this is an issue that we need to solve. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I want to thank everyone, our three speakers who came this evening to talk to us about things that are very important to them and want to share with the board. So thank you so much. We will now move on to our consent agenda, and that will be presented by Mr. Narducci.
Thank you, President Mazden, members of the board. This is a very long consent agenda, so I apologize in advance. We have out-of-state student travel, pre-planning forms for 22-23 school year. The 22-23 out-of-state student travel pre-planning forms are provided. They were presented at the June 8th, 2022 board meeting as information. We recommend approval. Under monetary gifts, we request the approval of monetary gifts of $20,728.40. Under donations, we request approval of the items donated at $18,569.26. Under 7.04, approval of resolution to appoint district or authorized representative to the Arizona School Risk Retention Trust. Article 14 of the agreement between Chandler Unified School District and the Arizona School Risk Retention Trust requires that the district appoint an employee of the district as the authorized representative to the trust for the purpose of acting as the district's representative in all matters pertaining to the agreement between the district and the trust. It's hereby requested that Lana Berry be authorized to represent the district in all matters pertaining to the agreement between the trust and the district. The resolution for board approval is attached hereto. 7.05, approval of resolution to appoint district authorized representative to the Arizona School Alliance for Workers' Compensation. Article 20.1 of the agreement between Chandler Unified School District and the Arizona School Alliance for Workers' Compensation Incorporated requires that the district appoint an employee of the district as the authorized representative. It will act in the district's representation. We're also asking that Lana Berry be authorized to represent the district. You're going to be pretty busy, Lana. And on all matters pertaining to the agreement between the Alliance and the district, the resolution for the board is also attached hereunto. 7.06 is the bank account signatories. Request approval of the resolution for the Chandler Unified School District to designate banking account custodians, signatories, and student activity fund treasurer and assistant treasurer. The district's listing of bank accounts and authorized signers have been updated. Under 7.07, IFB 11-23-27, non-athletic t-shirts, screen printing and embroidery and apparel. An IFB was issued by Chandler Unified School District on AZ Purchasing for the purchase of non-athletic t-shirts, screen printing, embroidery, and apparel. 22 vendors responded. The following 6 vendors will be awarded. They are Buddies All-Star, Creative Concepts International, Game One, KS Sports Promotions, Logo Commotion, and Snyder Custom Apparel. It has been determined that it would be in the district's best interest to award contracts to the 6 vendors who demonstrated the lowest cost. The non-athletic T-shirts, screen printing, embroidery, and apparel contract will be for 1 year with the option to renew on an annual basis for 4 additional years. Request board approval for the award of IFB 11-23-27 non-athletic T-shirts, screen printing, embroidery, and apparel in the amount of $550,000 for the 22-23 fiscal year. Under consent agenda item 7.08, warehouse stock support services, an IFB was issued by Chandler Unified School District on public purchase for suppliers to provide pricing for items stocked in the warehouse for support services. 8 vendors responded, and all 8 vendors were awarded based on the different products they were able to supply. The 8 vendors awarded are Aero Equipment, Brown's Part Master, DL Sales, Horizon Distributors, Used Supply, IDN Global Incorporated, Trans Supply, and Voss Lighting. The warehouse stock support services contract will be for 1 year. We request the board approval for the award of IFB 10-23-23 in the amount of $400,000 for the 2022-2023 fiscal year. Under item 7.09, another IFB 1423-23 warehouse stock general supplies, we did issue an IFB out for public purchases for suppliers to provide pricing for items stocked in the warehouse for general supplies. 19 vendors responded and 17 vendors were awarded based on the different products they are able to supply. The 17 vendors awarded are ACCO Brands, Alert Services, Atlas International, BSN Sports, Buddies All Stars, Cascade School Supplies, Centennial Sales, Creative Industries, DGS Educational Products, Game One, National Art and School Supplies, Performance Health Supply, Pyramid School Supplies, School Specialty, Southwest School Supply, Verco Incorporated, Waxy Sanitary Supply. The warehouse stock general supplies contract will be for 1 year. We request board approval for the award of IFB 14-23-23 in the amount of $760,000 for the 22-23 fiscal year. Under item 710, which is another IFB, it's 1523-27 for Rizzo Inc. and Masters. An IFB was issued by Chandler Unified School District on Arizona Purchasing for the purchase of Rizzo Inc. and Masters. 2 vendors responded. They were the Firth Group and Xerox Business Solutions Southwest. The Rizzo Inc. and Masters contract will be for 1 year with option to renew on an annual basis for 4 additional years. Request board approval for the award of IFB 1523-27 to Xerox Business Solutions in the amount of $250,000 for the 22-23 fiscal year. Item 711, which is the RFP 175-22-22, virtual dissection tables, and there's so much more than just dissection tables. The RFP was issued by Chandler Unified School District on AZ Purchasing for the purchase of virtual dissection tables. The purpose of this RFP is to enter into contract with a qualified vendor to provide and install virtual dissection systems for our 6 high schools and 6 junior highs. A total of 159 vendors were notified, but only 1 vendor responded and will be awarded, and that vendor is Antomage. Dissect that, right? The evaluation committee determined the response received was fair and reasonable. They were satisfied with the service and products that were submitted, and the virtual dissection tables contract will be for 1 year with the option to renew on an annual basis for 4 additional years. Request board approval for the award of RFP 175-22-22 virtual dissection tables in the amount of $448,200 for the 22-23 fiscal year. Under item 712, it's an RFP 9-23-27, graduation-related items. A request for proposal was issued by the Chandler Unified School District on AZ purchasing for graduation-related items. 2 vendors responded and 2 vendors listed will be awarded. They are Balfour and Jostens. A committee of 3 evaluators evaluated the responses based upon the evaluation criteria. The graduation-related items contract will be for 1 year with the option to renew on an annual basis for 4 additional years. We request board approval for the award of RFP 09-23-27 graduation-related items in the amount of $225,000 for the 22-23 school year. RFP 713, which is RFP 72327 Food Service Management Company. A request for proposal was issued to enter into a contract with a food service management company to operate our food and nutrition department to deliver a program that is financially sufficient and meets the district's goals in providing healthy, nutritious, and delicious meals. The Arizona Department of Education provides a list of 8 vendors that the district is required to send the RFP via email to for their review. From the 8 vendors notified, the district received 1 response from Aramark Educational Services. If only 1 response is received, AD requires a written determination for awarding the vendor in accordance with AAC R7-2-1032. If only 1 responsive proposal is received to a request for proposals, an award may be made in the single offer to the single offerer if the school district determines the price submitted is fair and reasonable, and that either other prospective offerers had reasonable opportunity to respond, and there is not adequate time for resolicitation. The written determination was sent to the ADE for review Wednesday, May 25th, 2022, and was approved by ADE which is the Arizona Department of Education, on Tuesday, June 7th, 2022. A committee consisting of 4 evaluators evaluated and scored the proposal. The vendor was evaluated on the following categories: labor, cost, and pricing, annual guarantee, food purchase specifications, menu planning and marketing, references, personnel staffing, and training. After the evaluation stage, the district found that Aramark's proposal was fair and reasonable. We request board approval for RFP number 072327 to Aramark's Educational Services to provide management services to the CUSD Food and Nutrition Department on a fixed fee basis pending a successful contract negotiation. The Food Services Management Company contract will be for 1 year with the option to renew on an annual basis for 4 additional years. 7.14 is extended contracts and sole source for fiscal year 22-23. Recommend governing board authorize the superintendent and chief executive officer and director of the business services for the use of the list of contracts, cooperatives, and sole source vendors provided in an amount not to exceed the estimated expenditure total identified for each vendor. The authorization is valid for single or cumulative purchases throughout the 22-23 school year, and the designee shall ensure that each item is properly procured through a district contract, cooperative purchase agreement, IGA, or sole source vendor supported by the required determination. 7.15 is delegation of authority. In conjunction with the governing board policy and pursuant to the School District Procurement Code, Arizona Administrative Code AAC R7-2-1007, the governing board may delegate certain procurement authority to 1 or more designees. Approval is requested of the delegation of authority. With approval, the board delegates routine procurement determinations and decisions, as well as contract and procurement approvals under the specified threshold. Procurements and contract awards over the specified thresholds not otherwise approved by the governing board will still be brought to the governing board for review and approval. District administration is also requesting a corresponding revision to policy DJE-bidding/purchasing procedures to adopt the delegation of authority in district policy. For its first reading, it is being presented as an information item in this meeting, and formal approval will be requested at the July 13th, 2022 board meeting. Item 716 is a 2022 to 2025 East Valley Institute of Technology, or otherwise known as EVIT IGA. Administration requests approval of the 2022-2025 intergovernmental agreement, between East Valley Institute of Technology, otherwise known as EVIT, and the Chandler Unified School District regarding provision of career technology education, district satellite programs, and participation of students with disabilities in EVIT Central Campus programs. A summary of the significant changes are as follows. Section 3A, reimbursement of home district, was updated in 4 significant ways. The percentage of satellite funding to home district will now be increased by 1% in years 2 and years 3. Also, 100% increased from 50% of additional assistant attributable to satellite ADM will be paid to home districts. So that has increased from 50% to 100%. A provision was added to address fourth-year funding, and the funding sections that had been added in years past to address the transition to current year funding has been removed because it is now a moot point. Section 3C, ADM reporting was added. Section 6A, VII was added to reflect a mutual obligation. The same provision appears in home district's responsibilities. And Section 6BII was amended to provide a date certain by which EVIT will respond to home district's request for proposed or continuing program approval if submitted by October 1st. Section 6IX was added regarding EVIT's responsibility to complete actions assigned to it on the calendar. In addition, Section 8 was amended to share transportation costs related to the familiarization plan between EVIT and the home district. Previously, it was solely the home district's obligation. EVIT is now taking part of that responsibility. Exhibit A was updated to remove references to specific years. SPED IGA had significant change to it, and that's our special education IGA. Accommodations, the word or term accommodations was removed from the definition of program supports in Section 1. Section 7A was updated to reflect 5 business days instead of 10 calendar days, consistent with other provisions. And Section 9D was updated to reflect changes in language related to the Perkins Grant funds, which was made to the current agreement by amendment. Section 10C was amended to add language from EVIT about being invited to attend meetings. As required by law, our district's attorney has reviewed and approved these recommended changes. We recommend approval of the 2022-25 IGA between EVIT Valley Institute of Technology and the Chandler Unified School District. And last but not least, human resources. We are asking for all employment separation and compensation to be approved as well.
Thank you, Mr. Narducci. That was definitely an extensive consent agenda. I know we have a lot of consent items at this time of the year as we prepare for next year and as we look at getting all the supplies and other items that our students need. So could I please get a motion?
Madam President, I make a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented by Mr. Narducci.
Second.
All those in favor of approving the consent agenda, please say aye.
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 The motion carries. Now, we will move on to our action items, and our first one this evening is the proposed school district annual expenditure budget for fiscal year 22-23. Mrs. Lana Berry will be presenting that, and I think looks like she might have a few handouts too for us. So, Mrs. Berry.
Madam President, members of the board. Okay, tonight you are going to see the proposed budget. It was put in the board packet, and it's called the proposed expenditure budget because by state statute, we are required to propose a budget, and then you have to have 10 days in between that proposal before you can adopt the budget, and you have to do that prior to July 15th. So you are tonight approving the publication, in a sense, of the proposed budget. It then can be found on our website and on the Arizona Department of Education. You can find every school district's on their website and then published on the Department of Education. Now, a couple things to know about the proposed budget right off the bat. The state is still negotiating the budget for next fiscal year, so this budget is for fiscal year 22-23. And unfortunately, the Auditor General had to release a budget because the state is not finished with that budget process. As we speak, they are at the legislature working on a budget that right now we definitely are supporting the financial aspects of the budget. There is a huge surplus, as you all know, at the state. And so we're hoping for an increase in the base with a lot more money coming into the base. We also are being told that there is money that will help support opportunity weight, which is for poverty. There are special education weights that will be in there. There's building renewal, construction needs for the state in there, and a few other things that are very important. But the majority of that would be in the base, which would help, obviously, our school district and every school district within the state. So we are supporting that. Our lobbyists signed in support of the financial aspects of that piece today, but this budget does not reflect that because obviously it has not gone through. So the only thing that we know right now is we know that we're guaranteed 2% based on Prop 301, which was approved through legislature and then the passage of law a couple years ago. So we get inflation or 2%, the less of the two. So even though we all know inflation is high, inflation or 2%, the lesser of the two. So we did build in 2% into this budget, and we did build in this budget a difference on our override, because overrides are calculated based on the number of students that you have from prior year times the new base support level this year. And the county has to use the number that's in the proposed budget. So the one thing we did do was we did predict, based on what we've been hearing down at the legislature, for the amount related to the base increasing for the override. And that's because Mark, who is the chief officer at the county, has to use the proposed budget that's set by state. So those were the only two things that we made sure we had in place before putting this proposed budget together. And I do want to say, I know you heard a number of items from our staff today. Lauren Randall and her team put all those procurement pieces together, which impact this budget. And Heather Caviar works really hard putting this budget proposal that you're seeing in front of you. So I just wanted to thank them. They've done a great job. So the budget that you see and that our community can see online starts with a cover sheet, and I wanted to go over a few things with you. You'll have the next couple of weeks to review this before we come back on July 13th. Now on the 13th there is a public hearing. At that point I do a full-fledged presentation. I go over all the differences. I have a presentation up and we go through all of the different changes. We talk about the state changes. We also go over the NP, which is New Programs 5000 that Mr. Worth actually started years ago. We review that with you because you've already approved it once, but we also go over any changes at that place. There have been things that we've added since then because we've had some needs that come up and that the administration has approved. We'll go over those changes with you, and then we'll kind of summarize the differences between last year and the upcoming year so you can see those changes. But as you're reviewing it, I'm just going to spend a couple minutes so that over the next couple of weeks as you take a look at it, you know a few of the changes. Feel free to call me or come in and see me, and I'll go over any changes that you have questions about, or if you just want to know a little bit more about school finance, I always love to talk about it. So feel free to come on by and I can talk to you about it, or I can talk to you on the phone about it. So the cover sheet is the first sheet that you see, and the major changes, I have a little bit of a cheat sheet in a sense for you on those changes. The first thing that I want to talk a little bit about that you're going to see on the right-hand side of the budget when you look at it is the tax rate. And so what happens and how our tax is set in Arizona, tax rates are set by our legislature for the qualifying tax rate, and then the voters can approve a few things, which they do. They approve our overrides, our bonds, and you as a board can determine a tax rate for adjacent ways. It's the only tax that you have in a sense of what we're proposing that you have authority on. The rest were approved by our voters, and then the qualifying tax rate is set by the state legislature. As assessed values go up in our state, the qualifying tax rate goes down. So you're going to see a decrease in our overall tax rate altogether. When you add our primary and our secondary tax rates up, Last year, the total was 6.07. This year in 22-23, the tax rate's 5.94, so it's going to decrease by 0.14. So the tax rate does go down. Most of that is due to the qualifying tax rate reducing because assessed values are going up. Now, our state has capped assessed values going up, so even though your home has gone up probably more than 5% when you look at that, we can only get taxed up to additional 5%. But you are going to see that. So the majority of you who have homes here in Chandler are going to see an increase in your assessed value. And so even though there is a tax rate decrease, there is a potential that your home will be a tax increase because your assessed value is going up higher than potentially some of the other places throughout the state. Some of the changes that you're going to see on the next part, this is really important, right through this area down in the bottom where it talks about what is the total budget expenditure and aggregated school budget limit. There are three things that make up that: the maintenance and operations budget, the capital budget, and then your federal programs budgets. Now, there are other funds outside of that, but that makes up the bulk, $450 million. There's still a couple $100 million in other things like bonds, your cash funds, your food service account, but the bulk of our dollars are between M&O, capital, and our federal programs. That total is $450 million. If you wanted to compare it to last year, if you were to look back, that amount last year was $434 million, and this year we're predicting about $450 million, an increase of $15.8 million. So where does that money come from? It came from the 2% increase that we had seen that the governor put out in his original proposal and what we know we can guarantee that's part of that. We have a slight increase in our ADM. Dr. Gilbert's numbers are predicting that we're going to grow in our high schools, even though we are declining in our K through 8. Our high school numbers are potentially up. We're hoping that those will continue by about 242 kids. Our teacher experience index keeps growing, so our staff is staying, and the number of years here served in our school district exceed the number of average years across Arizona, so that's increasing for us. As we grow and as the base support level grows, our override amount grows because it's based on our revenue control limit. So as the state increases our budget, that percentage, 15% times that, goes up, so we're going to increase that. Our carryover is slightly going to be down compared to the revision that we had last year. Registered warrants are about the same, slight changes. There's not too many changes within that. And then our increase, we're going to have a little bit more in our carryover and capital. Colleen Flannery is going to come up with a plan over the next year to help us determine our technology budget. We're super excited about that, and really designating our unrestricted capital funds towards our technology initiatives here in the district. So excited about that. Small changes in federal funds, but really only a slight change within our federal funds for about $39,000, so not much changes in that area. So overall, the difference is about $15 million. You're going to see that again, right through what's called the budget expenditures aggregated school district budget limit. The bottom right is important. This was required by our state a few years ago when the governor put 20 by 20 in for the 20 by 20% raise that he had, 20% raise by 2020. You can see that our district is $63,447 is the average teacher salary. I know people this morning got this text saying that another school district that's larger than us was potentially giving like a 10% raise and had gone up a whole bunch, but actually they were looking at their average teacher salary schedule, and so their average I think is 62, like 200 approximately. Our average is 63. Does not mean that ours is the highest in the entire state. There are other districts that have a higher average. Our base is 50,000, so you have to go out and look at other people's base. Some of them are lower or higher. We start a teacher at 50,000, I think $250. And then you can go up from that point. Our raise overall, our increase from the prior year is about $810 when she takes all teachers into consideration. We know retirements right now, but our problem is when we replace staff, we're still doing that as we speak. We put an entry-level amount in for those positions. So therefore, we have an average increase right now of $810, which is about 1.3% overall. We gave a 2% raise, but when you factor in all of those pieces, it's about a 1.3% increase compared to on our average. All right, the next couple of things you're going to just see a list of employees, but the next page is important. It says page 1 of 8, so pages 1 through 4 outline 4 important areas. They outline your maintenance and operations fund. They outline a little bit of how you spend your special education funds within maintenance and operations on page 2. Page 3 is important because you're going to go over your classroom site fund dollars, and then on page 4 you're going to talk about capital. So it's important to look at. You compare it from last year to this year. You can see the differences between the budget last year and the budget this year on both M&O, capital, and Prop 301. I will go over those details with you again in the hearing. You've heard most of those in our presentations related to the MP 5000s and our meet and confer agreements with our salaries and raise packages, but we'll go over those details when we do the hearing, but you're welcome to look at those. There's some line items in there. If you have any questions on that, let me know. Page 5 is important when you're going down through the budget. Page 5 outlines 4 different funds. You're going to see capital again. It's on page 4, but it's the first line item to look at from prior year to this budget year. But there's also 3 other funds that are important in there. Our bond fund is in there. That overall, our budget this year is going to be $105,000. Our new school facilities, we don't have new money coming in from the state for new school facilities as we built the last fund. High school. We got our last payment in on that, and so we don't have any new school construction money, so that's why there's a 0 budget in there. And then adjacent ways, we kept that at the same amount, $2.5 million, and we're gonna publish, which you'll see is a truth and taxation hearing, and you'll have a truth and taxation hearing on July 13th. You'll see a publication that we have to put out according to law, and then you'll have that hearing also on July 13th. The next page that's important is page 6, and this goes over all of your federal and state funding sources. The first part over here on the left side talks about the federal budget. You can see it's almost the same, $60 million approximately in federal money. A lot of that has to do with our ESSER money and all the federal money that came in this past year. Not too many big changes within all of that. We definitely have applied for grants and continue to apply for grants, as you know. Some of those will change as we change our entitlements and get our applications approved and our carryovers finished after the annual financial report is finished. The state projects are all the money that comes through our state. That is down when you look at it from $9 million down to $6 million. And the reason for that is because it's really based 2 main grants, the results-based funding and the college credit exam incentives called CCEIP. That money, we just put the carryover amount that we think is going to be in there right now because we have not been allocated that for next year. Once that's allocated, we bring that back to you in a revision. The governor does have results-based funding. We are the largest recipient for results-based funding in the state, and we're also the largest recipient for college credit exam incentives because we have the most students passing AP exams in the state. So those 2 will be updated when we do the revision. On the bottom is the instructional improvement funding. That money comes from gaming. We put in what we budget from those funds. We budgeted the same amount as last year. We do have $35,000 going out to every school, and we pay for Hill Academy out of this fund. And so we moved a few things around to budget the $35,000 per school that we increased from $25,000 last year. On the right-hand side is other funds. These are all the other funds. And so when we talk about a lot of different checking accounts and different funding accounts in Arizona, this is, as you see, we've talked about levy funds, we've talked about federal and state funds, and these are all of our other funds that we have within our district. And you can see they're everything from ELL funds to our food service funds to Civic Center when we rent out our facilities to our huge community ed program. We have the largest community ed program in the state serving students before and after school. And then you can go through the list between tax credits, indirect costs, our CTE funding sources, when we apply for building renewal grants to our IGAs. So a number of those and a bunch of changes based on that. For example, I'll give you a couple. We have in our food service account, we have a slight decrease because with universal free lunch going away, potentially will go down as participation might not be as high because it's not universally free. So we're predicting that. We're also predicting that our community aid funds are up quite a bit because we just secured another $5 million grant, and so we're going to offer additional services and continuing to promote that program. So that program is up quite a bit. Auxiliary and tax credit funds are up again this year because now we're starting to have field trips and we're starting to travel a bunch, so you're going to see those have increased. And then a couple other changes. As we pull indirect costs, we've been able to renovate all of our food service facilities, so as we pull money out of our food service account and all of our grants, we've been able to use that for different things. I think we're also going to, we talked today, one of our new positions that we'll be able to have for a year or two, we're going to pull from some of the money that we've been able to put into indirect costs to help our schools. And again, building renewal will continue to apply for grants for especially any air conditioning, heating units, also roofs that are deteriorating. Those things will continue to apply for so we can try to not utilize our bonds and hopefully access state funds for those. So some of those are the major changes. The next few pages are just summaries of how I got to the revenue control limit and some of our, on pages 7 and 8. So that just calculates what our budget capacities are. Those are the highlights of that. Again, on July 13th, we'll review in detail and we'll go over a hearing, have a public hearing on that, and then adopt the budget for the fiscal year 22-23. Do you have any questions for me?
Thank you, Mrs. Berry. Are there any questions?
I know that you're going to have a hearing and do more information on it, but the adjacent ways, is there a lot going on since we're not really building that much right now?
Sure. So when we go to redo our parking lots, a portion of our parking lots can be paid through adjacent ways as the fire lane piece of that. We spent our adjacent ways this year as we finished out our high school, so we want to make sure that we keep a balance in our adjacent ways and then have that for projects for the future. And then again, any of our sidewalks, curbings, any of the utilities we have to put together. Also, it helps. One time we had to put around $7 million in, and it really jumped the tax rate up because you have to pay that in 1 year. So it's sometimes when we build that up, as we go to redo schools, potentially with repurposing, and we have to pull some additional things in our northern side, it helps to have a base in there so we can roll over adjacent ways from 1 year to the next, since we'd like to build that base up a little bit.
I know you have to do, for like new construction stuff, you have to do a submittal to the SFB to pull them. Do you have to do submittal to them to pull money for the adjacent ways and parking lots and stuff like that as well?
Great question. Yes, we do, Mr. Ald. We have
Okay.
to, every single time we spend a penny out of that fund, we have to ask the SFB for permission.
Okay.
Mrs. Berry, I would like to confirm that when we do make a motion for this, that is basically just approving publication of the annual expenditure budget. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Because we will not be it'll not be coming to the board until after the public hearing for approval.
Right. That is correct.
Okay, could I get a motion to approve this budget for publication?
Madam President, I make a motion to approve the 2022-2023 school district annual expenditure budget for publication.
Second.
I have a
Are
question.
there any, yes, are there any questions? Mr. Worth?
Do we have to do truth and taxation as a separate item?
We do. It will
Tonight?
be on the July, not tonight. We're publishing it, and so this gives us authority to do that, and then we'll bring that to a hearing. It'll be a separate hearing on the 13th.
Okay, thank you.
Mrs. Berry, are there any changes that we'll see between now and the time that there's a public hearing in this document?
Great question, Mrs. Marsden. So no, this is the proposed, unless there is a change that you all want, and we would bring that forward in the adopted budget, but no, this is, the proposed budget is the one that we will adopt. We can make a change if there was a change that was needed, and we would just have to discuss that during the adopted budget. Typically, there aren't any changes between the proposed and the adopted, but since the state has not made a decision on the budget, we will probably see a revision in August or September, depending on when the state says we have to do that. In my 23 years of doing this, it's not happened very often like that. We've had some late budgets, but this is the latest I've seen so far.
Well, there'll be a major change. Lana.
What was that?
There's going to be a major change.
Major change, yes. Especially if there's $800 to $1 million worth of funding for education. There will be a big change.
So, Mrs. Berry, just a clarification. So, because everybody knows this state right now is discussing whether they're going to support education to a higher degree with funding. Decisions haven't been made yet. They're coming out late. Proposed budgets have to go through. So that will be in revision format, whatever comes. We still move ahead,
Yes.
meet our timelines, meet our mandates by statute, and then a revision will be made with whatever the state decides to support the district with.
Yes, that is correct.
Thank you.
So that revision will probably be, I'm assuming, in August. So we'll adopt this in July so we can meet the statutory requirements. That's why the Auditor General put out these forms, because we have to meet those requirements. And then in the future, they will tell us you have to do it by X date. We will make sure that it comes to the board and gets approved with all the legislative changes that take place tonight or tomorrow when they approve the budget.
All right. Any other questions? Mrs. Bruner?
I just had a question about page 8, line 8. Did IDEA Part B decrease for a reason?
Yes, so we get a certain allocation based on IDA, and also we have to wait for our carryover to come through. So we have spent a lot of our IDA basic budget this year, and so right now she's predicting what the carryover amount is, and then the prediction for next year. So those will get revised, IDA basic will get revised once we know the final allocation. So she's just trying to base it on carryover right now and what the prediction of where IDA would be.
So, in your experience of what's happened in the past, will it probably be a wash in the end?
I think so. We did spend quite a bit of our IDA basic budget this year to meet our needs, and I know that Dr. Marshall has requested a number of things, and some of those will be funded out of IDA basic, and some will be funded out of M&O. And so we will, depends on how much carryover we'll have at the very end. But do you, Dr. Marshall, do you have anything to add to that?
We just don't have the final application just yet.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Are there any other questions? All right, all those in favor of publishing the 22-23 proposed budget, please say aye.
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 Motion carries. Our next action item is the restatement of Chandler Unified School District Number 80 401A plan. Mrs. Berry. Did you need to go back to the microphone? Okay.
Madam President, members of the board, the Chandler Unified School District must restate effective July 1st, 2022, the Qualified Retirement Plan 401A to comply with the requirements of 2017 IRS Cumulative List, IRS Notice 2017-37, the American Taxpayer Relief Act of 2012, the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act of 2017, and other applicable guidelines. To adopt the appropriate amendments, the IRS requires that you adopt a new version of the plan document called the Plan Restatement. In addition, Chandler Unified School District wishes to affirm the appointment of Pellion Benefits and Company, Christine L. Chump is the plan administrator, as trustees of the plan. So request approval for restatement of Chandler Unified School District Number 80 401A plan.
Thank you, Mrs. Berry. Could I get a motion, please?
Madam President, I make a motion to approve the restatement of Chandler Unified School District Number 80 401A plan.
Second.
All right, are there any questions? Ms. Love? No? No. Mr. Olive? No. Mrs. Bruner? Mr. Worth?
No.
All right. Since it's something that's in place, and there shouldn't really be too many questions or discussion. So all those in favor of approving the restatement of the Chandler Unified School District Number 80 401A plan, please say aye.
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 The motion carries. And next, we have the purchase of non-student vehicles, and it is the Mrs. Berry show tonight.
Is our teams have been working really hard. Madam President, members of the board, tonight we're recommending approval to purchase 7 vehicles in the amount of $340,390.29, utilizing the Arizona State Contract CTR 059323, Phase 2 of Santan Ford. 2 vehicles in the amount of $146,906.23 to Sanderson Ford, using Arizona State Contract CTR 059316, and 2 vehicles utilizing Arizona State Contract CTR 041813 to RWC Group in the amount of $326,044.25 for a grand total of $813,340.77. The administration is recommending replacement and additions to the existing non-student vehicle fleet. This purchase was already budgeted for in 22-23 using district capital. The vehicles will be ordered with an undetermined delivery date due to supply chain production issues. We will be utilizing the state contracted vendors Santan Ford, Sanford Ford, and RWC Group. A couple things I wanted to mention about the list that you're seeing is we actually had a budget from 21-22, but we had a really hard time getting quotes in and to buy things this fiscal year. So we finally got everything put together. We do finally have quotes on every single item for this year. So we budgeted for 21-22 and 22-23. That's why you're seeing a larger amount than typical. But again, we've been struggling even getting quotes on vehicles this past year. So
we are pretty excited about having all of these. We found a number of them, so we're excited to get them in for our support staff, our technology staff, et cetera.
Great, thank you, Mrs. Berry. Could I please get a motion?
My board docs just reset.
I'll move that we purchase the vehicles that Lana Berry summarized in her presentation.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Are there any questions for Mrs. Berry?
I have one.
Yes, Mr. Worth.
We've been buying Ford for years. Why?
Well, we try to standardize as best possible because our mechanics work on the same ones and because of our supply side. So our buses, we've tried to keep very similar, and same thing with our white fleet. But because of the supply chain, we've changed some with some of the items that we have received.
So is there another same contract to say for Chevy? Or is it the only one out there, the one on Ford?
No, I think there's others too.
Okay.
There are. We've just standardized as best possible in our district.
Mrs. Berry, could you, I see that sometimes when we order buses, we'll trade some in. I don't see trade-ins here. Could you explain what happens to those vehicles that we will be retiring or replacing?
Yes, Madam President, great question. We actually have to bring them back to you first to dispose of them, and then we have to put them through a surplus. So typically, unless we can trade them in, but typically through white vehicles, we usually go through a surplus on that. But at this point, we've kept our vehicles. We've utilized them since we've been growing so much. We do have some older vehicles in our group, but we utilize those. We step them down, and sometimes our rangers are using them at the end, or security or other forms. We try to use them the best we can, no matter what.
Okay.
But on buses, we usually trade those in. You will see the change. We're going to do a huge bus order coming up pretty quick, and you will see the trade-in value on that when you do order the buses.
Okay.
One short question. I know state contract, how that works. Does the state contract get us any cheaper price when we're going through buying vehicles?
It does typically. So it has helped us in the past, but also most of those have been already guaranteed. But right now, prices for vehicles, you're paying typically more than the sticker price. So we are utilizing the state contract right now. And if we don't, we have to bid it out depending on if it's over 100,000 if we don't use one of those contracts.
Right.
All right. Ms. Love, anything? Ms. Bruner? Nope. Okay. All those in favor of purchasing the vehicles as identified as from Mrs. Berry, please say aye.
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 The motion carries. All right. We now have some information items, and the first one is code.org curriculum adoption for CTE software and app design program. Dr. Edgar.
Hello, good evening, Madam President, members of the board. Code.org offers curriculum resources for the Career and Technical Education Software and App Design Program. The AP Computer Science A curriculum was recently released as a part of the Code.org course offerings. Code.org curriculum was board approved to use as part of the Junior High Computer Discoveries and AP Computer Science Principles courses. This new course will be used specifically for the CTE CSC 335 AP Computer Science A course. Code.org curriculum and platform are available at no cost. In accordance with ARS 15-721 and COSD policy IJJ, for a period of 60 days starting June 23, 2022, the Code.org Computer Science A digital curriculum materials will be placed on display for public review at the Melinda Romero Instructional Resource Center. In addition, digital access to the curriculum will be placed on the curriculum webpage at the district website for review and comment. A final recommendation is anticipated at the September 14th, 2022 Governing Board meeting.
Thank you, Dr. Edgar. Are there any questions on this? All right. Thank you. Next, we have revisions to policy DJE purchasing, and that's Mrs. Berry.
Madam President, members of the board, the district administration is recommending the proposed revisions to policy DJE, bidding purchasing procedures. This is presented as information, and approval will be requested at the July 13th board meeting. So there are a few changes when you open this up. You saw tonight there was a delegation of authority, and then in the past, our board, or every July, we would bring, or June, we would bring to you a delegation of authority through a resolution. We worked with our attorney because that hadn't been updated for a while. So we worked with Kristen Mackin. She's our attorney, and she helped us kind of redetermine what we needed to do with this resolution. She said it actually should go as a policy. So she wanted to update, and she had us update the policy DJE and include the information that was on the resolution, and it was updated with a couple big changes. I want to talk about those. So when you open that up and you're looking at it on board docs, all the green area was what you've been approving in the past on a resolution of authority, and you did that through the delegation of authority, through the resolution. So now in the future, you don't need to approve a resolution because it's already part of your policy every year. And so she thought that was more appropriate as it's actually a board policy and can be pulled up. So a couple changes, she added the green area, but the two changes I wanted to make you aware of are the one that says that's underneath delegation of procurement authority. The change compared to what you're used to every single year is the ability to not have to come back to the governing board every time we spend up to $250,000 cumulative with a vendor. We had that amount at $150,000. We increased it to $250,000. The reason for that, years ago, I think Tucson Unified was the first district to do it. The bidding authority was $33,000 or approximately $30,000. And Tucson Unified found that they were spending a lot more money on trash sacks than $33,000 a year and have to ask their board to approve trash sacks. So they asked for a designation of authority as long as they did the procurement, if they could purchase it without having to bring it back to the board. Then large districts like Mesa and Chandler took on that piece. And so they increased their delegation of authority so they didn't have to bring it back to the board since we're so large. We had, the authority for procurement has jumped up to $100,000. So we still have to procure everything appropriately using contracts, IFBs, RFPs, all of those pieces up to $100,000. But this gives us the ability to go up to $250,000 so we can push through a purchase order and purchase an item without having to ask permission to the board for, say, an item that's a cumulative amount of $150,000. Once we pass $250,000, we have to ask your approval for that. Now, most of the items you approved tonight, when you did on the consent agenda and you saw the huge stack of all the Excel list that has all of the vendors with the dollar amounts that are on there and they're all procured, we typically bring all of that to you, but this gives us an ability if we decide we need to purchase something during the year that hasn't been on that list and they need to purchase it to secure an amount before there's a board meeting. That helps us get ahead of it 2 to 4 weeks depending on when the next board meeting is. So we're asking to increase that. We haven't increased it for probably a decade or two, and so we asked to increase that to $250,000. The other one is the award of job order contracting, and that's our JOC, to extend funds and the amount not to exceed $3 million. So we had that at $1 million. Our JOC means job order contracting, and we increased that from 1 to 3 million. We're watching other school districts. There's a handful who have done that in our state. And we're also watching cities do that. For example, Apache Junction just did this at their board meeting, but they're allowing districts to, again, not have to come back and get approval specifically for a job order contract. Now, those contracts are already bid out. They already have been priced out there on a state contract. So we, of course, will meet the bidding requirements for that. We'll still update and give information on it, but it allows us to utilize that without having to come back to the board. So sometimes there's not a board meeting for a month or 2 weeks, 2 weeks to a month sometimes, and so we might have to stop or not proceed on a job that we need to take care of, and this allows us to do that with the ability to go up to $3 million. So those are the couple of changes within that. There are a few other wording changes, but those are the major changes. Kristen Mackin, our attorney, is the one that helped us with that.
Thank you, Mrs. Berry. Are there any questions from board members?
I have something. So for JOC contract, for job order contracting for years, it's been at least 10 years, it's been $1 million for Chandler. In the last 10 years, inflation's probably doubled all the prices, but it hasn't tripled the prices. I'm always willing to come back in and come to a board meeting so we can vote on something if it's an emergency that's over a couple $1 million, but going to $3 million is kind of a push. I haven't talked to any of my fellow board members about this yet because we can't do that. But I don't think it's a good idea to go as high as $3 million.
Okay. We can definitely change that amount. I'll give you a good example. I think Apache Junction City, they had 2.5 and the board said we'd like to change it to 5. So you're welcome to change it up or down on that amount in that. So we can definitely do that based on what you're comfortable
Yeah,
with.
and typically, if you got to spend more than a couple of $1 million, it needs to be on something that you plan to do a long time in advance, so that's, and I've been on both sides of this, but I can understand now that why boards want to have purchasing authority.
Sure, absolutely. We will do what you're comfortable with as a board.
Does anyone else want to weigh in on that, or
Just, Jason, you'll let Lana know what you think's a good number?
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear
You'll
you.
let Lana know what you believe to be a good number for the next meeting?
Two is fair. I mean, construction costs for contracting and everything, in the last 10 years, yeah, it's doubled, but it's not tripled. So it would be perfectly reasonable to go to $2 million to have the same, ability to operate as we used to have.
Okay, sounds great.
Sounds good. All right, we'll now move on to our board agenda roadmap. And it looks like Mrs. Nye has been very busy with getting our new roadmap up, although I do know that there will be a number of changes made in it, so this is not set in concrete at the moment. And our next meeting will be on July 13th. I'm already in July, I don't know why, but I guess it starts with a J, just like June. But anyway, our next meeting will be on July 13th, and there is only one board meeting in July. And that, as Mrs. Berry had said, that will be our public hearing to adopt the 22-23 budget, the truth in tax and truth in taxation. So that'll be some of the main things for that particular meeting. And we will now move on to our superintendent comments. Mr. Narducci.
Madam President, members of the board, I just have a few things. We're halfway through our, what seems like a 7.5-week summer break. Hopefully our families have enjoyed some time and our board gets some time to rejuvenate and get away from their daily practice and work and get some time to enjoy their families. We're going to be welcoming close to 300 new teachers who will report on July 6th, with returning teachers coming back on July 13th. We have staff development plan for teaching support staff and administrative staff planned in anticipation of welcoming approximately 45,000 students on the first day of school, which will be July 20th, 2022. I'm going to state that again. Yes, for people that just moved here from Nebraska, we start July 20th, 2022, or any other parts of destination. A lot of times they don't understand that we start so early here in Arizona. So that's our first day of school with students. I want to thank our employees and our departments and our schools for working diligently and helping to ensure that our schools are ready to go. They are working overtime. We work 3 shifts so that we can get things done, and they're doing an incredible task. Tom and his team and JD and the team are doing a lot of work out there, recarpeting, furnishings, new furnishings coming in, and those take a lot of coordination, as well as all the construction projects that are happening. So I want to thank all of them, because summertime, people think we're not working, but we're working just as hard as we do during the year. It's 12-month positions, and if not harder, because we don't have students there, so it gives us access to buildings. Also for those individuals that worked our camps and our summer intersessions as well. In the meantime, we just wrapped up a number of summer academic opportunities, including Destination College. It's a collaboration, Destination Colleges, between CUSD, the Chandler Gilbert Community College, CEF, and Chandler Early College. 111 incoming 6th grade students representing each of our federally funded school sites recently completed a 2-week program of study on the campus of Chandler Gilbert Community College. We've done it for many years. We had to take a little break during our COVID pandemic piece, but the program was back this year and back strong. They explore potential career opportunities in fields of interest while engaging in academic modules, which were designed by our own academic coaches, and Dr. Edgar's here and worked with them to design those modules. The modules are high interest. They included lights, camera action, crime scene investigation, Shark Tank, and great outdoors. So they themed the skills they were working on around high interest for students. The students interacted with daily guest speakers who are experts in their field. Volunteers from the Pueblo Grande Museum and the City of Chandler also supported the classroom experience. The 2-week program culminated with an evening celebration ceremony, which included proud moments shared by families and friends. And a special thanks to Danielle Harris for serving as the coordinator of this year's Destination College program. So we really appreciate the fact that we have leaders that step up over the summer to provide these opportunities for our students, and that's not only a nice task, but the fact is that their summer is so short that our people that come back and work these programs, we really do appreciate that. 2 of our Hamilton High School student athletes received state recognition as Gatorade Arizona Players of the Year. Logan Salomon in baseball and Luke Schaefer in boys soccer. Out of the 9 Gatorade Players of the Year representing Arizona, 5 were from CUSD. These 2 join Dylan Anderson, boys basketball of Perry High School, Jordan Middleton, girls volleyball of Hamilton High School, and Nico Marchal of football for Hamilton High School as well. So again, that's quite a feat to have that many Gatorade Players of the Year. CUSD and for our city Chandler will host Operation Back to School. It's to provide backpacks that are filled with school supplies and resources for Chandler K through 12 students. So this is also available for our older students. The event will be held on Saturday, July 16th from 8 to 10. So that's Saturday, July 16th from 8 to 10. Chandler High School student parking lot at 350 North Arizona Avenue will be the location, and students must be present to receive the backpacks, but they are doing an exceptional job collecting and distributing supplies for our students. So again, for parents that are watching, it's Saturday, July 16th from 8 to 10 at Chandler High School, which is located at 350 North Arizona Avenue. A total of 207 music educators from 180 cities were named quarterfinalists out of 1,500 applications submitted by the Recording Academy, the Grammys for the 2023 Grammy Music Educator Award. Out of the 7 quarterfinalists named in Arizona, 4 were from CUSD, which is remarkable. Andrea Darlene Husky from CTA Liberty campus, Brandon Kygzen from Perry High School, Heather Niederer from Navarrete Elementary School, and Matthew Pitts from Rice Elementary School were the 4 who are nominated for that award. I'd also like to give a shout out to an organization called South Chandler Self-Help, who coordinated the Juneteenth event last week. Chandrea Norman of Chandler High School was named Miss Juneteenth after winning categories in self-intro, platform statement, on-stage interview. Chandrea will represent Arizona in the National Miss Juneteenth Scholarship in Galveston, Texas in October, which is incredible and an incredible event to be chosen for. So we're really excited to see her continue on this journey and to be able to be able to be recognized at that level is fantastic. In addition, there's another one of our students, Kendall McCullum, also of Chandler High, was named Miss Teen Juneteenth. She also won the categories of self-intro, platform statement, on-stage interview. Congratulations to Chandrea and Kendall, and we appreciate the opportunity South Chandler Self-Help created for our youth. They communicated before. We were able to get all that information out to our students beforehand. I believe Mr. Love even helped us coordinate that, Lindsay's dad, and so our students were well aware by the individuals that run our Black Student Union caucuses at the schools to be able to notify our students to be able to participate, because we're not in school, and so the kids did a great job. Finally, I'd like to congratulate the Arizona College Prep Science teacher, our Arizona College Prep Science teacher, Rachna Nath, who was named Time Magazine's Innovative Teacher of 2022. Her accomplishment has also been recognized in many different platforms, and the latest was by our governor as well. So what a great contribution to not only science and the content areas, but a collaborator with staff, and be able to have teachers of that caliber in our district is just amazing. So we are very thankful that she was selected, but and also just want to tell her to keep up the great work at ACP.
Thank you, Mr. Narducci. I really didn't expect to hear so many fantastic things that were going on with our students and with our teachers, because it's the middle of summer and we're not in school, but yet our teachers and students in our community are still achieving great things, even when they're not in school. So,
you know, that speaks volumes of our community. We have an amazing community, well-educated, support education, and are involved. And I think that's a great combination for success in our schools, and the great partnerships we have to be able to move that forward. So it takes a community effort.
thank you. Now it's time for board member comments. How about if I start at the end? Mrs. Bruner, do you have anything for this evening? Mr. Olive?
No.
Okay. Ms. Love?
I've had quite a bit because there's been a lot that's happened since our last board meeting. But yes, I did attend the Juneteenth pageant thrown by South Chandler Self-Help. As Mr. Narducci stated, my dad was very involved and hounded me for weeks to make that introduction to you so that they could get girls in the pageant. I was a past Miss Juneteenth winner. We're not going to talk about what year. It was 2000 something, and contrary to popular belief, I'm not motherless. My mother actually participated in the pageant as well and sang the Negro national anthem, Lift Every Voice and Sing. And so it was an honor to watch the girls as they performed in the pageant. We've got some talented students in this district, a lot of them dancing or reading poetry. Their platforms too were amazing. We've got some nice like social justice like activists in our campus. We've got people who had like human trafficking platforms. I believe there was one for like ALS, a platform on police and fear of the police, and mental health platforms, kinesiology, just a lot of things that our students who participated, which are actually 4 of our CUSD students who participated, 2, I believe, at Chandler High and 1 at Hamilton, and then I forget where, I think maybe 3 of them were actually at Chandler High, right? 3 at Chandler High, 1 at Hamilton. There was a Miss Juneteenth and a Teen Miss Juneteenth designation, and very excited to see 2 of our students crowned that night. In addition to that, myself, Mr. Narducci, Ken James, Natasha from our social work department, we participated in a meeting with Christina Sabeda from AZ Peer and Family Coalition, Katie McPherson, who many of you guys know. She's kind of been like the activist of the community regarding mental health and suicide prevention. A couple of our students, and then we had a superintendent from, I believe, Palo Alto. Yes, former superintendent from Palo Alto. I remember his first name was Max. I don't remember his last name. McGee? Okay, perfect. And we talked about some of the recent like suicides in the district and access to mental health. One of the main messages that the group suggested that we really focus on was access to means, which, you know, a child may need like that 15 minutes to decide, you know, between I'm feeling suicidal to making that plan. And one of the recommendations was we have weapons in our homes. Some of us have guns. Locking up your weapons. It's not really a political issue. It's if you have those weapons, you could save a life and you could save your child's life. And so I was happy to make sure that I got that message out, and I know that that group in the district are going to be looking at some initiatives in order to protect some of our teens, especially our men who, when they complete suicide, it is more aggressive, and it usually is firearms, or in the case of Palo Alto, they had several students who were going out to like train tracks and completing suicide, right? And I believe the former superintendent actually discussed a story in which there was a student who was suicidal, and he was thinking about going to the train tracks, but it happened to rain that night. And he was able to think about that, and that's what saved his life, right? And so access to means is important when we're having these conversations, and I can't wait to see what our social work department and the city, because council member O.D. Harris was also present, and I think that he was going to share this message as well in the next council meeting, which has actually passed since our conversation, regarding like just locking up your guns, locking up any weapons that you have in the home, and also knowing that we do have a mobile crisis unit that can come out to your house. It's usually 2 therapists, and they drive up and help with like safety planning if you need help. And I believe that we have that number on the back of IDs and posted on our district website, if I'm not mistaken. Yes, okay. And then I also attended the ASBA Leadership Institute in Flagstaff. And the first day of it was actually around like social emotional learning and mental health. There was a really great presentation from the ACEs Consortium, and for those of you who don't know what the ACEs are, it's an Adverse Childhood Experiences Survey, and the gist of it is like there are 10 questions, and they ask you questions about adversities that you've had prior to the age of 18. 4 or more adversities that you have may, make you more susceptible to like mental health and like physical health outcomes, and really trying to get our school districts to recognize that, because we could help with steering a child a different way as opposed to ignoring some of those warning signs and not providing resources. One of the major things that came out of this and the meeting with Arizona Peer and Family Coalition is it's not just on school districts, it really is a community effort too, and making sure that we're making those appropriate referrals and making sure we have a community that understands those adversities, understands what suicide looks like, and potentially saving a life. Also, Kyrene was there, and they gave a really great equity policy presentation because they just recently adopted an equity policy. Wonderful to talk to all the school districts, especially some of our more rural districts. Highly recommend it for next year for those of you who haven't attended.
Thank you, Ms. Love. Thank you for giving us a report on the leadership conference. That was cool.
It was fun. It was really fun.
And probably a little bit cooler up there.
Somewhat. I will say that I was not used to the elevation, so I got lightheaded for the entire time that I was there.
Oh, no. Well, Mr. Worth, anything? Okay. Well, we will see you. This meeting is adjourned, and we will see you in, the 13th is 3 weeks from today. Yep, we'll see you in 3 weeks. Have a good evening. Meeting's adjourned.